The suffocating heat of Manila weighed heavily on the bustling streets of Tondo district, where the smell of grilled fish and diesel mixed in the thick afternoon air. Manny Pacquiao walked discreetly among the market stalls, wearing only a simple t-shirt and cap, far from the spotlights that normally followed him. At 45 years old, the legendary boxer had learned to treasure these moments of anonymity, when he could observe the real life of Filipino people without media interference or fans. Among the voices of vendors shouting their prices and the constant noise of jeepneys passing by, his eyes were drawn to a disturbing scene in a dark corner. A skinny boy, about 12 years old, was desperately rummaging through a garbage bin, his small hands searching for any scraps of edible food. The child's ribs were visible through his torn shirt, and his bare feet showed cuts and calluses from walking too much on hot asphalt. Manny's heart tightened as he recognized something familiar in that young face, a resemblance that made him stop immediately. The boy's dark eyes, bone structure, nose shape, everything reminded him of someone he knew very well. It was like looking at a young version of Rodrigo Santos, his former rival in the rings. The Brazilian boxer he had faced in a memorable fight years ago. The memory of the fight came back like a flash. Rodrigo was a technical and respectful fighter, who always showed mutual admiration inside and outside the ring. They had developed a genuine friendship after that night, exchanging occasional messages and demonstrations of respect. Manny vaguely remembered Rodrigo mentioning that he had returned to the Philippines to work and that he had a family. The boy, apparently called Kiko by other street kids, continued his silent search for food, completely ignoring the presence of the man watching him. His dignity, even in misery, was touching. He didn't beg for alms, didn't bother anyone, just tried to survive with what he could find. Manny felt a lump in his throat, realizing that this could really be his old friend's son. Without hesitation, Manny slowly approached the boy, maintaining a respectful distance so as not to frighten him. The child looked up suspiciously, not recognizing who was before him. At that moment, Manny made a decision that would change not only that boy's life, but touch the hearts of millions of people around the world, proving once again that true greatness is not measured only by titles won in the rings. Manny knelt on the dirty sidewalk, positioning himself at the boy's height to appear less intimidating. The child instinctively backed away, his eyes revealing the fear of someone who had learned to distrust strangers. With a soft voice and in Tagalog, Manny asked the boy's name, who timidly replied that he was Kiko Santos. The surname confirmed the boxer's suspicions, making his heart race with the discovery. Gently, Manny asked about the boy's father, and Kiko's eyes filled with contained tears. With a choked voice, the child told him that Rodrigo Santos had died 6 months ago in a construction accident, working on a building in Makati. The boy explained that his mother, Luz, had been hospitalized in the public hospital for weeks, very sick and unable to work or take care of the family. The revelation hit Manny like a punch to the stomach. Rodrigo, that honorable man he had respected so much, had died working to support his family, far from the rings where he was once applauded. The Brazilian boxer had traded gloves for a construction helmet, showing the same courage he demonstrated in fights, but this time fighting against poverty and life's hardships. Kiko continued his story, telling how he lived with his grandmother in a small plywood house, but that the elderly woman was getting weaker and more confused. The boy had taken responsibility for getting food for both of them, going out every day to look for work or any form of help. His determination not to beg for alms showed the pride inherited from his father, even in the most desperate circumstances. Manny listened to every word attentively, feeling a mixture of sadness and admiration for that boy's strength. Rodrigo had been a warrior in the ring, and his son was proving to be a warrior in life, facing adversities that few adults could endure. The similarity between father and son went far beyond physical appearance. It was in their courage, dignity, and refusal to surrender to difficulties. Discreetly, the boxer observed more details of Kiko's situation: the broken sandals, the t-shirt that no longer fit his growing body, the small hands injured from handling so much garbage. At that moment, Manny knew he couldn't simply give some coins and go on his way. Rodrigo's memory and that brave boy's future demanded a response worthy of the situation. Without revealing his identity, Manny invited Kiko to lunch at a small nearby restaurant. a simple establishment that served traditional Filipino dishes. The boy hesitated initially, but hunger spoke louder than distrust. During the meal, Manny observed how the child ate slowly, savoring each bite as if it were his last, showing an education that could only have come from loving parents. Kiko told more about his life, how he woke up early to take care of his grandmother, how he tried to sell candies at the train station to earn some pesos, and how he visited his mother at the hospital whenever he could get money for transportation. The boy spoke about his responsibilities with an impressive maturity for someone his age, revealing a character forged in hardship but never broken by it. The boxer discreetly asked about the father, and Kiko became animated when talking about Rodrigo. The boy described his father as his hero, telling stories of when he was a boxer and how he had taught some basic moves to his son. Kiko's eyes sparkled when remembering the moments when Rodrigo came home from work and still had energy to play and talk about dreams and plans for the future. Manny was moved hearing about the teachings that Rodrigo had passed to his son, the importance of honesty, hard work, and never giving up on goals. The Brazilian boxer had been not only a competent fighter, but an exemplary father who had transmitted solid values even while living in difficult conditions. Kiko carried these lessons like a treasure, applying them in his daily struggle for survival. After lunch, Manny discreetly accompanied Kiko to his house, a small structure of wood and zinc in a densely populated area of Tondo. The boy's grandmother, Neneng, was a fragile 70-year-old lady who could barely stand. Manny introduced himself as a friend who wanted to help, and the elderly woman received him with typical Filipino courtesy, even in her debilitated condition. The house had only 2 small rooms. One served as living room, kitchen, and grandmother's bedroom, while the other was where Kiko slept on a thin mattress on the floor. There was no refrigerator, the stove was improvised, and water came from a communal tap outside. Manny observed everything silently, mentally calculating what would be necessary to give dignity to that family that faced so many adversities with such courage. In the following days, Manny returned to the neighborhood dressed as a common worker, observing Kiko's routine without being noticed. The boy woke up at 5 in the morning to take care of his grandmother, prepared a simple meal when there were ingredients, and then went out for his survival activities. His dedication was touching. He washed the family's clothes at the communal tank, swept the small house, and still found time to talk lovingly with Neneng. The boxer followed Kiko on his walks through the city, seeing how the boy knew every corner, every informal work opportunity, every person who could offer a small task in exchange for some coins. It was impressive how that child had developed a network of contacts and survival strategies, showing a practical intelligence that many adults didn't possess. During one of these observations, Manny witnessed a moment that marked him deeply. Kiko had earned some coins selling plastic bags at the market, and instead of buying food for himself, went straight to the pharmacy to buy medicine for his grandmother. The boy carefully counted the money, negotiated with the pharmacist, and left satisfied for getting the necessary medications, even though it meant going another day hungry. Manny also discovered that Kiko visited his mother at the hospital once a week, always on Sundays. The boy walked 2 hours to the public hospital, spent some hours talking with Luz, and then walked back to save transportation money. During these visits, Kiko always brought some fruit or flour he found along the way, showing unconditional love even in the most difficult circumstances. The mother's situation was complicated. Luz suffered from a severe lung infection that required prolonged and expensive treatment. Doctors had explained to Kiko that she needed special medications and a longer hospitalization period, costs that were far beyond the family's possibilities. The boy accepted this information with mature resignation, but Manny could see the pain in his eyes. At that moment, the boxer decided to act more concretely. He didn't want to just give money and disappear. He wanted to create a lasting solution that would honor Rodrigo's memory and give Kiko and his family a real chance to rebuild their lives. The plan that began forming in his mind was ambitious, but Manny knew he had the resources and determination necessary to execute it. Manny began his help strategically and silently. First, he discreetly contacted the hospital where Luz was hospitalized, identifying himself as an anonymous benefactor interested in helping with the treatment. He arranged for all medical costs to be covered, including special medications and additional hospitalization time necessary for the mother's complete recovery. Simultaneously, the boxer contacted a trusted construction company to make structural improvements to the Santos family house. He instructed that the renovations be presented as a government popular housing program to avoid the family knowing the true origin of the help. The small house would be expanded, gaining adequate electrical installations, internal plumbing, and a structure more resistant to weather. To ensure a sustainable income source, Manny used his contacts to get Kiko a spot in a renowned technical school which offered full scholarship and even paid a small allowance to needy students. The program included meals, uniform, school materials, and professional training that would allow the boy to have a qualified profession in the future. Neneng was also included in the plan. Manny arranged for her to receive adequate medical care through a health program for elderly people, besides ensuring that necessary medications and supplements arrived regularly at the house. A caregiver was hired to visit the lady 3 times a week, helping with household tasks and medical follow-up. The boxer also made arrangements for the family to receive a monthly basic food basket, delivered as part of a supposed social program from the city hall. The basket contained not only basic foods, but also hygiene products, basic medicines, and some small luxuries that could bring joy to the family's daily life. Throughout this process, Manny kept his identity secret, watching from afar the changes in Kiko's life. The boy was confused but extremely grateful for all the help that seemed to be coming from various directions simultaneously. His greatest joy was knowing that his mother was responding well to treatment and would soon be able to return home completely recovered. 3 months after the entire process had begun, Luz was back home, completely recovered and impressed with the transformations she had found. The renovated house, the cared-for grandmother, Kiko enrolled in an excellent technical school. Everything seemed like a miracle she couldn't fully understand. The boy had explained about the various government programs that had apparently benefited the family. Kiko was flourishing in his new environment. His grades at school were excellent. He had made new friends, and for the first time in months he could act like a normal child. The boy still maintained his determination and sense of responsibility, but now he could channel these qualities towards study and personal development instead of just survival. One day, while Kiko was walking from school to home, he recognized a familiar figure on a corner near his residence. It was the kind man who had offered him lunch months ago, when he still lived on the streets looking for food. The boy approached happily, eager to tell about all the positive changes that had happened in his life since that encounter. Manny smiled, seeing Kiko's transformation. The boy had gained weight, was well dressed in his school uniform, and his eyes sparkled with hope and joy. The boxer asked about the family, pretending not to know about the improvements, and listened enthusiastically while Kiko described every detail of the changes that had made his life possible again. During the conversation, Kiko casually mentioned that his father had been a boxer and that he had always dreamed of meeting Manny Pacquiao, his absolute idol. The boy described how Rodrigo watched all the Filipino champions' fights, commenting on his technique, his humility, and his dedication not only to the sport, but also to the Filipino people. These words deeply touched Manny's heart. At that moment, observing the genuine gratitude in Kiko's eyes, and remembering the words of admiration the boy had repeated from his father, Manny felt it was time to reveal the truth. The impact of this revelation would be immense, but he knew Kiko deserved to know who had really honored his father's memory through concrete acts of generosity. With his heart racing, Manny asked Kiko to sit on a nearby bench, explaining that he had something very important to tell him. The boy looked at him with curiosity, without imagining what he was about to discover. Gently, the boxer began explaining that he had personally known Rodrigo Santos, that they had been adversaries in the ring, but also friends who respected each other mutually. Kiko's eyes widened when Manny revealed his true identity. The boy was in complete shock, unable to believe that his idol had been by his side during all these months, not just as a spectator, but as the one responsible for all the positive changes that had transformed his life and that of his family. Manny carefully explained how he had recognized Kiko that day at the market, immediately remembering the resemblance to Rodrigo. He told about the respectful friendship he had developed with the boy's father, describing Rodrigo as a man of exemplary character, both inside and outside the rings. The boxer emphasized that all the help had been a way to honor the memory of an admired friend. The boy began to cry, but they were tears of gratitude and emotion, not sadness. Kiko could finally understand the magnitude of what had happened. His childhood idol had not only known his father, but had become his family's guardian angel when they needed it most. The revelation gave new meaning to all the events of recent months. Manny hugged the boy, explaining that he didn't want public recognition or elaborate thanks. Everything had been done out of love for Rodrigo's memory and for the potential he saw in Kiko. The boxer expressed his confidence that the boy would honor his father's legacy through his studies, his character, and his future achievements in life. Kiko finally found words to express his gratitude, but Manny gently interrupted him, saying that the best way to thank him would be to continue being the brave and determined young man his father had raised. The boxer promised to continue discreetly following Kiko's development, not as a benefactor, but as a family friend who had known Rodrigo Santos's worth. 2 years had passed since that transformative encounter at Tondo market. Kiko, now 14 years old, had become one of the best students at his technical school, excelling especially in mathematics and engineering. The boy maintained the same determination as always, but now channeled toward constructive and promising goals for his future. Luz had gotten a stable job at a cleaning company, and although the salary was modest, it was enough to maintain the family with dignity. Neneng was well cared for, with stable health and surrounded by the love of the reunited family. The small renovated house had become a true home, full of laughter, conversations, and plans for the future. Manny continued visiting the family discreetly, always as the friend who had known Rodrigo. These visits were special moments where he could see Kiko's development and feel that he had adequately honored his former rival's memory. The boxer never sought publicity for his actions, keeping everything as a personal matter between friends. During one of these visits, Kiko announced that he had been accepted on a scholarship to engineering at a prestigious university. The boy explained that he wanted to specialize in civil construction, the same area where his father had worked, but this time as an engineer responsible for designing safe buildings. It was his way of honoring Rodrigo while building his own path. Kiko's story eventually became known at school and in the neighborhood, inspiring other young people to persevere in the face of difficulties. Although few knew the true identity of the benefactor behind the transformation, the legend of how kindness can change lives spread, creating a wave of solidarity and hope in the community. On that special day when Kiko received confirmation of his university scholarship, Manny observed from afar the young man's radiant smile and felt deep satisfaction. Rodrigo Santos had left a legacy much greater than boxing titles. He had created an extraordinary son, whose future now shone with infinite possibilities. The true champion had been that working father who, even far from the rings, had won the most important fight of all, raising a son of integrity and determination. And Manny had had the privilege of helping that legacy flourish, proving that life's greatest triumphs happen away from the spotlights, in the silence of genuine gestures of love.
Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next cases.